Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of emotional resonance. Songs that don't just have an emotional component to them, but where the emotion is extremely felt or a prominent element of the song. Today we're going to be checking out an artist that I don't think I've heard before. It's called Juno. Not only are they an artist I've never heard before, but apparently they're not even on Spotify. We have to use a YouTube video for this one, despite there not being a music video. No Bandcamp entry either. So really last resort here on YouTube. Let's dive in and see what Juno is bringing to the table with When I Was in Blank.
That's so you are. And now your mouth's running on, telling us all the ways she went wrong. But nobody's listening, so soon we'll all be so you didn't get it right. No one ever gets
There's some nice bass work beneath all of these layers of guitars. It's an explosive moment there. There's a lot of potential in this verse.
At AM 5 o'clock, when all the love's asleep on your block. Post Memorial Drive, you'll be the last to leave, to say you're goodbye.
The snare's turned off, but there's a lot of reverb on the drums in general. Gives it a very punchy sound in the back of this. There's a mix of tension and beauty in here. That note right there feels right, but it's surrounded by so much grit. Drums are really heating up. This is different from the past two times we've had the lower energy part.
That's all a matter of reaching. That's all a matter of covering. Believe me, that's
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest. I thought the song was doing a nice job of building atmosphere through the verse and choruses. And then I suppose the bridge, which took the high energy and low energy ideas and extrapolated on them a bit, put some lead guitar parts in those. I thought everything was just it was fine. Doing a great job of building this atmosphere, but I wasn't really connecting with it. There's a lot of interesting choices throughout this song that we'll touch on in a moment. But there at the end, that final 40 seconds or so, I think it clicked. I think a lot of it comes down to one, I was picking up on the words. I'm going to assume that knowing the rest of the lyrics might have even more of an impact on that final statement. But from what I could hear, he just kept saying, "You are beautiful." And I just kind of assume that's more of a royal you. Anyone listening to this. That mixed with this heightened, almost cathartic and spiritual tremolo picking going on with the right guitar, with this rising pitch out of it. Every note chosen seems to imply more beauty, more rest, more, I don't know, joy. There's still a lot of noise and chaos in this section. The other guitar, the bass, there's some noisier elements to this, but this one guitar over here, feeling like rising into positivity. And this dude just shouting, "You're beautiful." Like, dude, that's powerful. The way that the song built into that. Yeah, dude, I can get behind that. That ending I thought really worked. But the journey getting there is a little strange. Sonically, I think a lot of this works. We have some distorted, gritty guitars. We have a nice, round, punchy bass. The vocals kind of dip between this very comfortable spoken word, a bit quieter stuff, to a shouty alternative rock sound. I think both of those vocal styles work well within the context of the song. And the drums, while being a bit dry with the snare on the snare drum turned off, kind of only getting the attack of hitting the drum head, but not the rumble of the beads vibrating beneath it. That comes off a bit dry and punchy, but it works well with the reverb of it. As we go through the song, the drummer brings in more syncopated, groovier ideas, more hits on the drum kit entirely, rather than just allowing the reverb to fill space, actually getting some nice grooves and rhythms out of the drum part, kind of evolving it over the course of the track. All of this works. It creates a nice sort of mix between like an alternative rock idea as far as note choices and chord progressions go and drum patterns, and sort of the shoegazy element of distorted, dreamlike atmospheres, and kind of finding a midpoint between those two. The song does an excellent job of doing that, of pairing those two ideas together and creating something that feels rather cohesive, not of two ideas, but just collectively works. But through that, they have to come up with some interesting decisions. How do we pair riff-based ideas with tremolo picking, with texture, atmospheric work? And I'm sure that this isn't I'm not sure. I'm going to assume that this isn't the approach they took to the song. It was probably just building the song up and it ended up like this, rather than saying, let's merge these two ideas and figure out where the problems are. But the idea is that we do have texture writing, but we also have melodic writing. And at least as far as I can tell, they do a lot of clashing. This is my biggest issue with this track and why I had such difficulty in the first 70 or 80% of it getting into it. It's very noisy in ways that I don't think necessarily benefit it. Now, maybe we get into the lyrics and the noise is part of it. Maybe it's talking about noise that we deal with in life, or stresses, or anxiety, or tensions, or I don't know, being at the end of the song is a repetition of "You're beautiful." Maybe it's self-esteem issues. I don't know. But maybe the noise is supposed to represent that. And maybe that's all going to make sense when we hit the lyrics. And I can really appreciate this from this artistic perspective. But from a musical one, it's kind of noisy. The two guitars and the bass are all totally in their own worlds. And I'm not just talking about like spatialness, where, when you have multiple melodic ideas going on, you really have to know when notes are going to work well together and pair well, and if they don't sound good together, how to manipulate the lines so that you can play them kind of simultaneously, but not. Maybe in breaks between each other's lines. Maybe this one plays for a couple of notes, and then there's a short break, and you can interject one of those spicier notes in there to get the flavor of it without it clashing with any of the notes from this guitar. There's a lot of things that go into writing basically three-way counterpoint when you're aiming at not using one consistent set of notes. They basically don't care about that at all. There's almost no thought that goes into the beginning here of what's the best way to have these instruments dance around each other. They just all play all at the same time, and there seems to be no regard for chords. Even though these instruments aren't playing things together in harmonious ways that would imply intentionality to chordal stacks, we still have moments where all three of these instruments are playing notes at the same time, and our ears are going to mix all those notes together. In essence, they are playing chords, even though it is probably not written that way. And the chords that I hear while listening to this track are cacophonous. It is noise, it is dissonance, it is gnarly, it is not fun to listen to. But individually, most of these ideas are solid. I really love the bass line. I think that the more atmospheric guitar riffs, they work really well. Great use of taking the distortion in the guitar with a picking style and a chord progression and really building a feeling out of that. And the riffs, I think, work well too on their own. They're catchy riffs. They work well at propelling the story forward. But when it all comes together, it's really difficult to hear them separately. It's just this noise everywhere. There's just sound coming at the listener from every direction. And through that lens, it kind of becomes difficult to ascertain what the song is trying to say. Imagine having three people speaking to you, all kind of at the same volume, a little elevated, kind of yelling a little bit. It's overwhelming to hear all of them, and they're all overlapping each other. You might pick up a phrase from one and then a phrase from another, but most of it's just going to be noise. It's going to be difficult to figure out what any of them are actually saying to you. It's just overlapping sounds. And that's kind of what happens for me in a majority of this track. When I really try to hone in, I can listen to one of the instruments. I can kind of get where they're going, but it's not very long after when the other two are vying for my attention. They're all at the same level, all at the same volume, all at the same presence in the mix. And your focus starts to bleed out a little bit and begin to work the other sounds in. And it really gets difficult to focus in on just one instrument. And so what I have found is that when I listen to them, I can hear for moments how good the ideas are in isolation, but it's really difficult to take the song in on that style. You really just get bombarded with the sound from all angles. And it just becomes this cacophonous, uh, uh, like dense wall of sounds that kind of bounces between. Sometimes you'll hear a little brighter chordal movement or a melodic lick or something. Like, oh, that's kind of nice. And then it'll get transformed, not because of what this instrument's doing, but because of how all the other lines work around it, into something that feels darker, tenser, weightier. It kind of becomes difficult to figure out what it wants to say. And at a point, I just kind of gave up and said, honestly, this song's just saying everything. It is overwhelmed, but it's also joyful, angry, sorrowful, wistful. It's a little bit of everything. And I keep coming back to the title. When I was in blank. That doesn't give any insight either. It all feels rather ambiguous musically and the title. And I wonder if that's not supposed to be the intention here. A bit on the abstract side, given that it's a lot of things. It's really up to the listener to put in what they want and take out what they want, which makes it more open to a variety of readings. At least that's where I sit right here. After just listening to the music, we still have to get through the lyrics, and that might change my perspective on things. But I think that's where I stand here. It's noisy, it's cacophonous, it's very dissonant, but I think it's doing what it needs to do. And I think that despite the fact I had a difficult time with most of the song, the ending made all of that worthwhile. Even if it was just a part of the ending that stood out to me, it did stand out to me. And I think that the way I felt in the end of the track is something that I'm not going to forget too quickly. Let me hit some lyrics on this, see what's going on there. I think this song is about treating every moment of life with import and not allowing any part of life to be frivolous. The first two stanzas primarily focus on moments, I suppose. People, I'm not entirely sure. The first describes somebody who just spends their time talking garbage about someone else. It says, you said everything like it was an afterthought, should have used it more wisely, that soul that you bought, and now your mouth's running on telling us all the ways that she went wrong, but nobody's listening. It follows this up and saying, so soon we will all be gone. So no, you didn't get it right, but nobody ever gets it right. Kind of talking about the human experience in general is about failing, getting back up, maybe failing again, maybe failing hundreds of times, but always getting back up to find that final success. The way that I read this is that it's never too late to change. Maybe looking at this person who is talking negatively about someone else and saying, look, you can always change who you are. You can be a more positive person in your life, and it's never too late to do that. You didn't get it right up until this point in your life, but no one ever gets it right on the first time. You can make the change today. The second stanza, though, it's a heavier one, I think. It talks about somebody whose son passed away, and they have found themselves locked in this life, still on this same neighborhood block. Everyone else has left, and they're one of the last people to remain in this area. basically describing them being surrounded by ghosts, eternally lost inside. Then we have a rather lengthy instrumental bit, and it moves into the big ending. We have a repetition with a slight variation to it. It says it's all a matter of reaching, a matter of covering. Believe me, it's nothing. Believe me, it's everything you never wanted it to be. A matter of reaching, but a matter of struggling. Believe me, it's nothing. Believe me, it's everything you ever needed it to be. That the struggling, the low points of our lives help us reflect on life, help us make changes. They help determine our character and who we're going to be. It may be everything that we never wanted, but it's exactly what we needed. And this brings me back to my original statement at the beginning of this segment about treating all of life's moments with import. He says, this can't be an afterthought. This right here is all that I ever want. You are the beautiful you. You're the best version you'll ever be of yourself. No one else is going to be you. Who are you going to be is how I feel that develops into. It's not quite stated, but given the ideas we've seen elsewhere in the track, I really feel like that's what's being presented here. Life is hard, but life is beautiful. If it was all good times, positive all the time, life wouldn't be what it is. It is the struggles, it is the high points. And these really low moments help define who we are. In a sense, I think that the musical side of this works really well with the lyrical side. It's about trying to make sense of chaos. Life isn't orderly. It's unpredictable. But it can be really beautiful and really uplifting too, which is what the end of the song meant to me, at least from a musical perspective. And I find that to be beautiful. These, though, are just my thoughts on Juno's When I Was in Blank, which I have no idea how that relates to anything now. But I'm interested in your perspective. Did you enjoy this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have a different opinion or take on this song? Please put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.